Two psychologists at Cornell University discovered something that explains why the least qualified person in every meeting speaks with the most certainty. David Dunning and Dunning-Kruger found that incompetent people consistently overestimate their abilities, while competent people underestimate theirs. The result is a world where ignorance breeds confidence and knowledge breeds doubt. The research was devastating in its simplicity. People who scored in the bottom quartile of tests consistently rated their performance as above average. They didn't just fail to recognize their incompetence. They were so incompetent, they couldn't recognize competence in others. Meanwhile, those who actually performed well assumed everyone else was equally capable and doubted their own superiority. This phenomenon explains why your most clueless colleague speaks with absolute certainty about subjects they know nothing about, while genuine experts hedge their statements with qualifiers and uncertainty. It reveals why social media is dominated by people with the strongest opinions and weakest credentials. It shows why political discourse is controlled by those who understand the least about governance. The implications are staggering. In a world where confidence is often mistaken for competence, the people least qualified to lead are most likely to seek leadership positions. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one who knows nothing, but the one who knows nothing and doesn't know they know nothing. Each section reveals how this psychological blindness operates and ends with practical methods for recognizing it in others and avoiding it yourself. The Cornell discovery that shattered our faith in human judgment. In 1999, David Dunning and Dunning-Kruger published research that would fundamentally alter our understanding of human self-perception. Their study began with a simple question: do people who lack ability in a particular domain recognize their incompetence? The answer was more disturbing than they anticipated. The researchers tested subjects on humor, grammar, and logical reasoning, then asked them to estimate their performance. The results revealed a consistent pattern that defied common sense. Those who scored in the 12th percentile estimated their performance at the 62nd percentile. The worse someone performed, the more dramatically they overestimated their abilities. But the phenomenon went deeper than simple overconfidence. Dunning and Kruger discovered that incompetent people suffered from a double burden. Not only did they lack the skills to perform well, but they also lacked the metacognitive ability to recognize their deficiency. The same ignorance that made them incompetent also made them incapable of recognizing their incompetence. The study revealed 4 key findings that would reshape psychology's understanding of self-assessment. First, incompetent individuals dramatically overestimate their own competence. Second, they fail to recognize genuine competence in others. Third, they cannot accurately gauge the extremity of their inadequacy. Fourth, training in the relevant skills not only improves their performance, but also their ability to recognize their previous incompetence. The researchers tested this across multiple domains and found the pattern held consistently. Whether evaluating jokes, identifying grammatical errors, or solving logic puzzles, the least capable individuals showed the greatest overconfidence. This wasn't simply about being wrong, it was about being wrong while being absolutely certain they were right. Dunning and Kruger's work built on earlier research in social psychology, but provided the first systematic examination of the relationship between competence and confidence. They coined the term unskilled and unaware of it to describe this phenomenon, though it would later become known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. The implications extended far beyond academic psychology. The research suggested that in many areas of life, the people most confident in their abilities might be precisely those least qualified to have that confidence. It offered a scientific explanation for why incompetent people often rise to positions of authority while competent individuals doubt themselves. The study also revealed why feedback and training are often ineffective for incompetent individuals. Because they cannot recognize competence in others, they dismiss expert advice and remain trapped in their ignorance. Only after gaining actual competence do they develop the ability to recognize how incompetent they were. Understanding this research helps explain why the most dangerous person in any situation isn't someone who admits their ignorance, but someone who doesn't know they're ignorant. When you encounter someone speaking with absolute certainty about complex topics, remember Dunning-Kruger's discovery: confidence and competence often move in opposite directions. Why incompetent people can't see their own incompetence. The Dunning-Kruger effect operates through a cruel psychological mechanism. The same deficits that cause poor performance also prevent recognition of that poor performance. This creates a closed loop where incompetence reinforces itself by blocking the very awareness needed to improve. Metacognition, thinking about thinking, requires the same underlying skills needed for competent performance. To recognize bad reasoning, you need good reasoning skills. To identify poor judgment, you need good judgment. Incompetent people lack both the ability to perform well and the ability to evaluate their performance accurately. Consider someone attempting to be funny without understanding humor. They tell jokes that fall flat, but because they don't understand what makes something genuinely funny, they can't recognize why their attempts failed. They interpret awkward silence as appreciation, polite laughter as genuine enjoyment. Their incompetence in humor prevents them from accurately reading social cues about their comedic failures. This pattern repeats across every domain of human ability. Poor drivers don't recognize dangerous situations because the same skills needed for safe driving are required to identify unsafe driving. Incompetent managers can't see their leadership failures because effective management requires the same interpersonal awareness needed to recognize management incompetence. The effect is particularly pronounced in complex, abstract domains where competence develops gradually. Someone learning statistics might feel confident after understanding basic concepts, unaware of the vast complexity they haven't yet grasped. Their limited knowledge feels comprehensive because they lack the advanced understanding needed to recognize their limitations. Incompetent individuals also struggle to learn from feedback because they can't distinguish good advice from bad advice. When experts try to correct them, they often reject the feedback as wrong or irrelevant. They may even become more confident in their incorrect beliefs when challenged, interpreting criticism as evidence of others' ignorance rather than their own. Social factors amplify this psychological blindness. Incompetent people often seek out others with similar limitations, creating echo chambers where everyone's ignorance feels validated. They gravitate toward information sources that confirm their existing beliefs while avoiding challenging perspectives that might reveal their incompetence. The internet has supercharged this dynamic. Anyone can find communities that share their misconceptions and websites that support their incorrect beliefs. Incompetent individuals can surround themselves with seemingly authoritative sources that reinforce their confidence while never encountering genuine expertise. This explains why some people become more confident as they consume more misinformation. Each conspiracy theory video or pseudoscientific article makes them feel more knowledgeable, when in reality, they're moving further from accurate understanding. Their incompetence prevents them from distinguishing reliable sources from unreliable ones. Breaking free from this trap requires developing what psychologists call intellectual humility. the recognition that your knowledge has limits. But achieving intellectual humility requires the very metacognitive skills that incompetent people lack, making escape from the Dunning-Kruger effect particularly difficult without external intervention or genuine education. How society rewards confident idiots over competent doubters. Modern society has created a perfect storm for the Dunning-Kruger effect by systematically rewarding confidence over competence. In boardrooms, classrooms, and political arenas, the person who speaks with certainty often wins, regardless of their actual knowledge or ability. Job interviews exemplify this dynamic. Candidates who confidently discuss topics they barely understand often outperform genuinely qualified applicants who honestly acknowledge their limitations. Hiring managers, lacking expertise in the relevant domain, mistake overconfidence for competence. The incompetent candidate's certainty feels more impressive than the competent candidate's nuanced understanding. Social media platforms amplify this effect by design. Algorithms favor content that generates strong reactions, not content that's accurate or thoughtful. Simple, confident statements spread faster than complex, qualified analyses. The person who tweets, "The solution is obvious," gets more engagement than the expert who explains why the problem is complicated. Political systems have evolved to exploit the Dunning-Kruger effect systematically. Candidates who offer simple solutions to complex problems appeal to voters who lack the expertise to evaluate policy proposals. Meanwhile, politicians who acknowledge complexity and trade-offs are perceived as weak or indecisive. The electoral process selects for overconfidence rather than competence. Traditional media contributes by presenting false balance between experts and non-experts. When climate scientists debate climate deniers or medical doctors debate anti-vaccine activists, audiences often can't distinguish between genuine expertise and confident ignorance. The format suggests both sides have equal credibility when they don't. Corporate culture particularly rewards the Dunning-Kruger effect. Confident employees who volunteer for high-visibility projects often advance faster than competent employees who focus on doing quality work quietly. Incompetent managers who make bold decisions with certainty are often promoted over thoughtful leaders who consider multiple perspectives before acting. Academic environments aren't immune. Students who confidently assert wrong answers in class discussions often receive more attention than those who carefully work through problems. The educational system sometimes rewards participation and confidence over accuracy and understanding. Online discourse has become dominated by the most confident voices rather than the most knowledgeable ones. Comment sections and discussion forums are filled with people making absolute statements about subjects they understand poorly, while actual experts often avoid these spaces because they recognize the futility of arguing with confident ignorance. The phenomenon creates a vicious cycle where incompetent people gain platforms and influence, which they use to spread their incompetence further. They become thought leaders, influencers, and decision makers, not despite their ignorance, but because of the confidence their ignorance generates. Dating and social relationships follow similar patterns. People who confidently express opinions on everything often seem more attractive than those who admit uncertainty. Intellectual humility, while virtuous, doesn't always make for compelling conversation or impressive first impressions. Recognizing this pattern allows you to make better decisions about whom to trust and follow. When someone speaks with absolute certainty about complex topics, treat it as a red flag rather than a sign of expertise. Look for people who acknowledge limitations, cite sources, and express appropriate uncertainty about difficult questions. Escaping the confidence trap. Breaking free from the Dunning-Kruger effect requires developing genuine competence alongside accurate self-assessment. The path forward isn't to become less confident, but to ensure your confidence aligns with your actual abilities. Start by actively seeking out your knowledge gaps. Instead of focusing on what you know, deliberately explore what you don't know. Read material that challenges your assumptions. Engage with experts who can highlight your blind spots. The goal isn't to become paralyzed by uncertainty, but to develop realistic awareness of your limitations. Practice intellectual humility by qualifying your statements appropriately. Replace "I know" with "I think" or "based on my understanding." Add phrases like "I could be wrong" or "this is just one perspective." These verbal habits reflect accurate self-assessment and protect against overconfidence. Seek feedback actively and specifically. Don't just ask, "How did I do?" but "What specific mistakes did I make?" and "What would someone more experienced have done differently?" Create systems that force you to confront your errors rather than rationalize them away. Study the experts in your field systematically. Notice how they think, speak, and approach problems differently from amateurs. Pay attention to their uncertainty and their process for handling complex questions. Genuine expertise often involves knowing what you don't know and having frameworks for dealing with uncertainty. Develop what psychologists call accurate confidence by calibrating your certainty to your actual knowledge. Before making claims, ask yourself, how confident am I in this belief? And what evidence would change my mind? Practice adjusting your confidence level based on the strength of available evidence. Build competence gradually and systematically rather than jumping to advanced topics. Master fundamentals before moving to complex applications. Each level of genuine competence will improve your ability to recognize both your growing capabilities and remaining limitations. Create accountability systems with people who have the expertise to evaluate your performance accurately. Surround yourself with individuals who will challenge your thinking rather than simply validate your existing beliefs. Seek mentors who can provide honest feedback about your strengths and weaknesses. Remember that escaping the Dunning-Kruger effect is an ongoing process, not a one-time achievement. Even experts can fall into overconfidence in new domains or when they stop actively learning. The goal is developing the metacognitive skills to continuously assess and adjust your confidence based on your actual competence. The ultimate irony of the Dunning-Kruger effect is that recognizing it in yourself is a sign you're already beginning to overcome it. Incompetent people don't worry about being incompetent. If you're questioning your abilities and seeking to improve them, you're demonstrating the very self-awareness that incompetent people lack.